Breaking tonight from the courtroom chain, a sudden statement triggered an immediate reaction and brought proceedings to a halt. Moments later, prosecutors pushed back firmly, signaling a major shift in how this case may move forward.
October 19, 2023. San Antonio police officers Nicholas Swain and another officer respond to a welfare check. They knock on the door. What happens next changes their lives forever. Jesse Prado, barricaded inside with an AR-15, opens fire. 17 shots at Officer Swain. The bullet rips through his wrist. Another tears through his femoral artery. He's dying on the scene. Today, we're in the punishment phase of his trial. And what you're about to hear will make you question everything about justice, mercy, and accountability.
When we broke last time, you had just finished telling the jury about when we broke last time, you had just finished telling the jury about the extent of your injuries and the recovery that you had gone through. Do you recall that?
I do.
Okay. So the only questions that I have left for you are, number one, given everything that you went through, the physical recovery, the mental, psychological effects it's had on you and your family, why go back to being a police officer?
Primarily it's for the other officers. When we get called out to respond to these calls, there's no one else coming except for other officers. When I was shot, I had absolutely zero doubt in my mind that the cavalry was coming. It was just a matter of time. And whether they had to come from different sides of town or different units, I knew that they were going to be there. And for me, the way that I was treated by my department, by the fellow officers, after I was injured, how could I not go back during my family?
And the last question I have for you is, what would you like the jury to know about what you want to happen to Jesus Prado for what he did to you?
Mr. Prado tried to take our lives away. I think the punishment for that should be life.
Nothing further.
Defense?
Just a few questions, Judge. Officer Swain, thank you for your service. Thank you for your bravery. And thank you for being here today. I have a few questions that I want to ask you and go over with you. Just very quickly, I mean, you are back on the force, correct?
Yes, sir.
I don't think you told Melissa where you were assigned or the jury. Where did they put you? As soon, I guess, where are you right now as far as assignments go?
Currently, I'm on West Patrol Daylight, although on 6th, that's when that transfer was. Before that, I was on Central Patrol Daylight for about 2 weeks for my return to duty.
Okay. Are some of the things you mentioned slowly going back to normal? Like, I know your wife took off time from school. Does she go back to school?
Yes, she's currently in a master's program right now. So she completed her course of study, and now she's in graduate school.
Okay. I know you talked about just the difficulty in feeling safe in society. Have you all gone back to more normal things like family vacations or going out in the city for events and things like that?
Yes.
All right. Now, as a police officer, you have arrested some people that have probably been pretty bad as far as criminal history, have a history of hurting a lot of people, things like that. Is that true?
My fair share.
Okay. Now, this is a little bit of a philosophical question. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but you do know, like, Mr. Prado Jesse's never had any criminal trouble in his entire life up until this incident. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I've heard.
Okay. And there is no disputing the consequences of his decision that day. I mean, you would agree with that as well, right? I mean, the state has presented video evidence, testimony evidence of everything that went on that day in October of 2023. I mean, you know that as well, right?
Yes,
As a police officer, are you trained in the dangers of calls that can involve mental health situations?
yes,
Do you agree philosophically that a person who feels the weight of their world coming down on them through either depression, severe loss, and possibly some brain trauma, that is mitigating in any way, that a good person could make a horrible choice? Is that mitigating to you at all?
I too have had a severe concussion that required me to relearn how to speak again. Back in 2015, I had a motorcycle accident, and I was in the in San Diego, at the Naval Hospital over there. I was there for about 8 to 9 months, and instead of taking the money and running with my medical retirement, I decided to stay in and complete my term in the Marine Corps. So I am absolutely aware of the effects of a concussion. It's terrible. You wake up like feeling like a completely different person, especially when you add medication to that. At the time I was on oxycodone, the withdrawal effects of that, the emotional outbursts, anger in my case. I don't know what his personal experience was. However, I can say that for me personally, all those obstacles were absolutely something that could be dealt with.
And I mean, obviously, whenever you have, what, I mean, I guess let me ask the question this way. My initial question was about whether it's mitigating, whether it's somebody who's clinically depressed, experiencing severe loss, heartbreak, might have some brain injuries. Is that more sympathetic in one way than a person who has made choice after choice after choice to be mean and ugly and to hurt people with, assaults or emotional abuse or things like that? Is there a difference between those two kinds of people?
Yes, the person who had multiple assaults probably had a gradual descent into that. For Mr. Prado to be faced with these sorts of obstacles and immediately raise himself to the highest level of deadly force against innocence, to me, any sort of mental illness does not mitigate that. Now, you were speaking about philosophically. What do I think about this case? I think that everyone in this room and part of society, civilized society, takes part in the social contract. And it's a part of the justice process to deal out justice so that the individual who are victimized do not personally have to deal with that. So that the people who are victimized don't have the burden of punishing someone else. And so I can come here and I can testify. But ultimately, it's up to the court and the justice process to figure out what is the correct punishment. If you were asking me personally, no, I do not believe that.
Okay. And if you're going to be fair to Mr. Prado on this particular issue, the person who suffered the most damage probably isn't the best person to decide what that punishment is, because there's no getting around the fact that you personally were more affected than anybody else in this case with what you had to go through. Would you agree with that?
No,
Don't agree with that.
I think my son is the one who is most affected by this. And I want to be able to go back to him and tell him that he never has to worry about him, Mr. Prado, for the rest of his life. Because he has fundamentally changed. And he was 3 years old when this happened. He saw my recovery process. And even though he is healing through that process and through whatever trauma that he is completely different. And I have no idea how his life is going to be affected positively or negatively for this. However, based off of what I've seen with his experiences in school, with his social issues with other children, but also with authority, I signed up for this. He did not. My wife did not. I personally would say that they were affected by this the most, not me.
All right. Now, do you believe that rehabilitation is a factor to consider in a case like this?
Again, for me, that is not my position. I think that's the judges and the justice processes position to figure out and determine what is best. Me personally, again, coming from my own biases and I can tell you from my experience, I think people can change if they want to. However, most people just become more and more like themselves. So now that Mr. Prado has opened the door to this, if he's granted leniency, whenever there's something else that comes up that pushes him towards this direction, whatever level of stress that he's dealing with, it's going to be easier and easier for him to think, well, I already did this before and I'm already out. And that's what I'm worried about. Again, you're asking me personally. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, I mean, you agree there would be people that would have a different opinion than that too, though? I mean,
Absolutely.
okay. All right, well, I appreciate your answers and I appreciate you being here, officer. I have no more questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions? Is this witness excused?
Yes, Judge.
Excused?
Yes, sir.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means, you're not allowed to discuss your testimony or view anything about this trial until its conclusion.
Yes,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
you may step down. Make sure you move.
Officer Swain just told the jury he doesn't believe mental illness mitigates attempted murder. The defense disagrees. But before we get into the legal philosophy, let's talk about what actually happened that day. Because the next witness, the paramedic who saved Officer Swain's life, is about to describe a scene so chaotic, so desperate, that it's hard to believe anyone survived.
Sir, I'm handing you what I've marked as State's Exhibit C, just for identification purposes. Do you recognize State's Exhibit C?
Yes, I do.
And the State's Exhibit C, a fair and accurate copy of the report you generated about we've been talking about?
Yes, it is.
I'd ask that you use it to refresh your memory. Just please don't read directly from it, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So tell the members of the jury about the circumstances that prompted you all to get dispatched to this location and assist.
Well, we were eating dinner and then the call came through and it said, officer down, which we, with officer down, we're not sure exactly what's happening until we get out in the unit. We start reading the report or the notes that come from dispatch, and from dispatch, it said that an officer had been shot. So, we hop in, we got there as quickly as possible. My ambulance was the first one on scene. We got out, we started yelling, who shot, where are they? And a PD car was there. They opened the back door, they pulled Mr. Swain out, brought him over, we threw him on the stretcher and we got him back in the unit. And we started to assess him at that point. What that means, we get him in there, get it as closed as possible, and just basically start removing everything off of him. We're trying to get his vest off, we're trying to get his clothing off. Anybody in trauma, we call it trauma naked. We try to get them down to pretty much everything but the bare essentials, like maybe underwear and a bra or whatever the case you may be wearing. And a lot of times those have to come off as well. But we're looking for bleeding first, looking for bleeding from the gunshot wounds, bleeding from any type of bleeding, cuts, whatever it may be. And we had assessed and noticed that we noticed at the time was he had a hole from a gunshot wound in his right wrist. And then he also had, I'm trying to remember, let's see here. Pretty sure it was the right leg. He had a bullet wound in the right leg. Yeah, right leg just below the waist. Found those. We had more fire units coming on scene. We had more PD units coming on scene. People trying to get in and out of the ambulance. We were trying to keep. It's very chaotic at one of these. What we tried to do is to get as many fire personnel inside there working, because we tend to work very well together and we know what we're doing. And, somebody jumps on, what do you need? You get this, you get this, you get this. Understandably PD lamp, trying to keep some of them back a little bit, and we're trying to report to them what's happening. We get as many on there. We've tried to find somebody to drive us down to BAMC. BAMC is where we decided to go.
I'm just gonna interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
Before we get to the transport of Bamsey, I want you to tell the members of the jury a little bit about what you visually saw
Okay.
as far as his injuries. Describe for them the hole to his wrist and the gunshot wound to his leg.
Okay, so the hole through his wrist appeared to be about a $50 size hole. It was at the top of the hand or excuse me, the bottom of the hand, top of the wrist, right here. You can see right through it. Hand looked a little grayish, starting to look like maybe he wasn't gonna be able to keep it. Luckily, the gunshot also stopped the bleeding in the hand. The bleeding in the hand may also been from the amount of blood that he had lost. He had blood going through his pants, through the right leg. He also had a tourniquet on over the pants. We did the best we could. We were assessing. We saw that he was still bleeding from the hole in the leg. So we cut the pants, readjusted. My partner readjusted the tourniquet, got it down to where there was pain and where the bleeding had stopped. And when you're putting on a tourniquet, one of the things you look for is you're causing pain, and that means you're getting it tight enough. Tourniquet is a very, very painful thing to have on, but you need to stop the bleeding because he was shot through the femoral artery and blood was just continuing to come out. And in the run, when you're looking at a lot of his vitals, the vitals are telling you and the vitals are showing you that he's losing blood and he's dying.
And we're gonna talk about that. As far as the injury to the leg, do you remember, can you approximate for the jury, if you recall how big or small the hole was in his leg?
My end, it looked like a typical bullet hole. I mean, it's hard to say because whether you have or have not seen a bullet hole. Typical bullet hole usually, I would guess, is about the size of a dime. Now, that's what you see on the outside. What's inside could be very different depending on what kind of bullet, what kind of penetration or what is in there. So from us, you just see a hole and a lot of blood coming out of it. And we don't have x-rays, we don't have that kind of stuff, but you see what's happening. So best way to take care of that is with a tourniquet or air cover, depending on where it is.
So now I want to talk about the vitals. When you first get your hands on the patient, you take an initial set of vitals so you can get a baseline. Is that correct?
Yes, after you've gotten them trauma naked, you assess the bleeding, stop the bleeding. One of the other guys or a bunch of the other guys are starting to get, arm cuff on to get their blood pressure. We're trying to get reading from the heart. We're trying to see, his O2 sats from his finger. And then if possible, they want glucose, and sometimes you get that, sometimes you don't. But all of this is going on at the same time because we've got a lot of different people doing different things.
And so looking at the report, the first set of vitals, what are they telling you about his condition?
So the first set of vitals is telling me that he's in a pretty poor condition.
What are the vitals?
So the BP is 85/51. Typical good BP should be 120 something over 70 something. This is very, very low. So when we're looking at a high BP, we look at the diastolic, the second number. When we're looking at low BP, we're looking at the first number, and it's below 100. That's not good. And his pulse is down. Pulse of 76 for somebody who is in a traumatic situation should be a lot higher. Should be like 150. You're amped up. Should be going. 76. He's on his way out. It's low, and his O2 sat you want 94 or above, and anything below 90, it's an exponential drop on your way out, and he's at 77.
Okay. And the time of those vitals was at 7:16 p.m.
Yes.
And then the next set of vitals, which are 5 minutes later, what are they telling you?
So we're giving him an IV. We're also we don't have a whole lot with us, so we're trying to get his numbers up, and we're basically can I explain a little piece first? Okay, he needs whole blood. He needs blood. Your typical ambulance doesn't carry blood. Our medical officers carry blood, and our tactical medics carry blood. So giving blood is very new in the realm of paramedic medicine. And city of San Antonio is the one leading the world in that right now. What that means is we carry low titer O positive blood. Low titer means, so the international giver of blood and that can give blood to anybody is O negative. Less than 15% of people in the world have negative blood, but many people have O blood. And a male's O positive blood, you can make it a low titer, which means it makes it very low in terms of reactivity to other blood types. So in an emergency setting, we can give that to you, and you would have a very low reaction to it, if any. And O positive blood is carried by the blood bank. Our officers get it every day. The tactical ambulances get it every day. We carry it. He needs blood, but I don't have it. So all I have to give him is a little bit of saline. And saline is not necessarily the thing you want, but it's what I had. So I gave him a little bit of saline, and his blood pressure is starting to come up. What that means is I now have circulation going through the body. The problem is because it's saline, my pulse is still dropping, and my O2 set luckily is kind of leveling out. And that's because I'm getting blood moving through the body, but it doesn't have enough blood in there to really help.
So what were the stats 5 minutes later?
95 over 58, pulse of 49, it's dropping, and then O2 sat is kind of level, so it's at 78%.
So from the first reading at 7:16, his pulse was 76. 5 minutes later, down to 49. Is that a significant drop?
Yes, huge.
And then 4 minutes later at 7:25, what are the stats telling you then?
It's worse.
Tell the difference.
So because of the saline, basically I'm watering down his blood, when I'm getting it moving. His BP is 114 over 68. His pulse is at 34. And his O2 sat is starting to drop again, and it's at 73%.
What is a pulse of 34 for a male of Officer Swain's age and general health? What does that tell you about him?
He's dying soon.
He's lost so much blood, he's not.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
He's on his way out. I don't know
So,
how else to put that.
Yes. However it is. So you mentioned something about medic units carrying blood, and you don't have any. So while you're taking these vitals and they're dropping, are you in the ambulance on your way to Bamsey?
Yes.
Okay, so because his pulse had gotten so drastically and dangerously low, what decision was made by you and your team?
We called, and so even before we left the scene, we called for whole blood, called dispatch. Somebody was having a meeting somewhere in town and it kind of pulled the medic officers down. So we said, we don't care, get us somebody, we're on our way, this is the path we're taking. Medic 1, which is downtown, called and said, we will meet you halfway. So they shut down I-35. We met with Medic 1 out on the highway, stopped everything, got medics off of Medic 1 and their whole blood on board, added more IVs and just started pumping whole blood into them.
Okay, so this was such an emergent situation that they shut down traffic on the freeway.
Yes.
And you were able to give him the whole blood right there on the side of the road.
We start as soon as we got the needles in, we started moving again. We started pushing the blood as we were moving.
And then do you see his vitals start to come up after that?
Things are starting to get better. Yes, ma'am.
And so at 11 minutes after the last reading where his pulse was 34, what are the vitals looking like now?
So we now have 128 over 80. We have a pulse of 120. And so one of the other IVs that one of the tactical medics got were in his right arm, and it knocked, trying to remember, right arm, and then we just accidentally knocked off the O2 set, so we don't have one at that point. But we have the other two numbers, which are even more important, and that's 128/80 and the pulse of 120. So that means the blood is in it, it's starting to circulate, and it's starting to work.
Okay, and then the reading 2 minutes later, you did get the O2, right?
Yes,
And what is that?
100%.
Okay.
Because that means, so try to explain that, your red blood cell is the number one thing in your blood that you need. Red blood cell is able to carry 4 oxygen molecules. And what this is reading is it's reading the percentage of oxygen on those red blood cells as it's going through. And if you have water in your system and you're pushing up the BP, you're not giving oxygen to the rest of the body. And the heart is working and the heart's trying to pump. And that's where earlier you saw the pulses were dropping because they weren't getting any oxygen because there wasn't any blood. They're just pumping water. Water's not going to do much. So once you get the whole blood in there, that's when you see that pulse just jump way up because the heart's like, yay, I'm getting oxygen. And it just starts running again. And then pulse, the BP's up, it sustains, and then it goes up a little more, which is just wonderful. And the heart's starting to level out as well in the rest of the vitals.
And so what happened after you were able to give him this transfusion and you got him to family?
Just a handoff at BAMC. Give them a report, told them what we did. Doctors were happy, everybody was happy because he got blood, and from that point on, it's kind of like we are. It's just a bunch of ants running in and they start doing their thing and we just have to get out of the way.
If he hadn't gotten the blood, would he have made it to the hospital alive? No. Nothing further done.
Defense?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
He's excused from the statement.
All right, if you're excused,
Yes.
all right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to share your testimony or review anything about this case until the case concludes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, if you'll remove the square microphone, please. And you may step down. State, call your next witness.
The state calls Dr. Lowe.
Oh, just leave that to the court report. All right, could you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I mean,
All right, you can lower your hand. Just keep your voice up so everyone can hear. If you'll state your name for the record and spell your last name, please.
Joshua Lowe, Lowe.
All right, state, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Lowe, how are you currently employed?
I am currently an attending physician at Brooke Army Medical Center. I'm also an associate medical director for Center.
Okay, and can you please explain to the jury your educational background and professional training that qualifies you as a medical doctor?
Yeah, in addition to medical school, I am board certified in emergency medicine and fellowship training in pre-hospital medicine and disaster medicine.
Okay. And are you licensed to practice medicine in the state of Texas?
I am.
And how long have you been licensed?
In the state of Texas, I've been licensed for 2 years. I've been licensed as a physician since 2018.
And what does your practice consist of there at BAMC? Is that like an acronym for Brooks Army Medical News?
Yes, ma'am. So BAMC is one of 2 level 1, which is the highest level trauma centers, not only in San Antonio, but in all of Strath, the Southwest Texas regional.
All right. And so as an attending physician, are you there in the ER?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you guys receive income traumas?
Every day.
All right. Now, were you employed as a medical doctor on October 19th, 2023 at BAMC?
I was.
And on that day, did you receive a patient by the name of Nicholas Anton Swain?
I did.
Okay. And can you describe the condition that he was in when he arrived in the emergency room?
He was brought in by San Antonio Fire Department, directly into one of our 2 main trauma bays. And he had a gunshot wound to the inner right thigh with 2 tourniquets in place. His pants had already been cut by the paramedics, and he had a bleeding wound from his right wrist.
Okay. And upon arrival, was he in stable condition, or how would you describe this condition?
He was in stable but critical condition. By that point, he had already had the 2 tourniquets in place to stop the bleeding and had received most of a unit of whole blood from the fire department. His blood pressure was low and his heart rate had gotten high at that point. He was in what we call shock, hemorrhagic shock.
Okay. At some point during his treatment, did you have to oversee life-saving measures?
Yes, the entirety of his care or his treatment under my care was life-saving.
Okay. And at some point, did he have to be resuscitated?
Yes, ma'am. The entirety of his care under my treatment was resuscitation to get him stable enough to go to the operating room.
Okay. Now I want to talk to you about the gunshot wounds that you described. So regarding the gunshot wound to the right leg, can you just explain to the jury what major arteries are contained in the right leg?
So when he came to us, we took the tourniquet down to make sure that there was arterial bleeding, and there was, which is pulsatile, and we put the tourniquet back up. Our initial concern was that he hit the femoral artery, which is one of the major branches coming off of the aorta. You can bleed out in 2 to 3 minutes from that. They found later in the OR after opening it up that it was the popliteal artery, which is a major branch off of the femoral artery.
And excuse me, if you could spell that artery for the court reporter, please?
Popliteal is Popliteal. And that one is a little bit smaller, but you can bleed out in about 10 to 15 minutes.
And then regarding the wrist wound, can you just describe what that was? It through or what risk presented from the wrist?
Yeah, honestly, he got kind of lucky with that one. It completely missed both bones and went right through the middle. It was through and through. If it had been a millimeter to either side, it could have caused a lot worse damage.
Okay. Regarding what would be the normal heart rate for an individual such as officers in healthy condition?
Normal heart rate would be anywhere between 60 and 85 or 90. Someone of his age and stature.
Okay, and so someone or his pulse being at 35, what did that indicate to you?
Given the context of it, of the bleeding, he was likely in what's called stage 4 shock, which is the most grave form of shock. Which is after, when you start losing blood, your heart tries to keep the cardiac output up by making your heart rate go up so that it maintains the same. And he was starting to trend down at that point, and was well below where it was.
Okay, now, this downtrend, was that caused due to blood loss that he was feeling?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have an opinion as to the whole blood transfusions, impact on him?
Absolutely. I don't want to say it was lucky, but he was lucky that this happened in San Antonio. We're one of only a few cities in the country that have whole blood in the field. By the time he came to me, he was already back into stage 3 shock, and his heart rate was up because of the blood he received in the field. I don't know what would have happened if he hadn't received that blood.
Stage 4 shock, the worst kind, the kind where your body is shutting down. Dr. Lowe just confirmed what the paramedics said. Without whole blood in the field, Officer Swain would have died. San Antonio is one of the only cities in the world where medics carry blood. Think about that. If this shooting had happened anywhere else, we'd be at a murder trial. Now, let's hear from the person who had to live through the aftermath, Officer Swain's wife, Tikki.
Married in 2019.
And were you with him when he joined the San Antonio Police Academy?
Yes, I was.
Was that a big deal for him?
Yes, I knew ever since the day I met him that he wanted to be a police officer. He had been telling me that ever since he was 8 years old, he wanted to be a police officer. It was a calling for him.
So when he went through the academy and was able to become a certified police officer, was that something that y'all celebrated?
Yes, I knew that it came with a certain degree of risk, but I was very happy for him that he was able to achieve this goal that he had wanted since he was a child.
You said that you knew that it came with a certain degree of risk. Tell the jury about kind of your initial, I guess, thought process when it came to being the wife of a police officer. Did it feel real to you that you could potentially lose him one day?
When he became a police officer, of course I knew that it came with the risk of him being hurt or worse. But I think that it didn't feel real to me in the moment. It felt like these sorts of things happen to other people. And my husband had won all kinds of awards for being most physically fit Marine, best cadet, most best Marine, all kinds of things like that. And so I think I looked at him like he was invincible. And I don't think I realized that until he was seriously hurt, that he wasn't.
And you and Officer Swain had a child at some point, is that right?
Yes, we have a 5-year-old. His name is Tristan.
Was he proud that his dad was a cop?
Yes, very. Yeah, my little boy loved anything having to do with lights, sirens, fire trucks, police cars. So he was very proud to have a police officer for a papa.
So you mentioned that it didn't feel real to you at first. I guess not necessarily the possibility, but the likelihood that he could be seriously hurt. Tell the jury about the night you found out that he was shot.
I had been out. I was in school at the time, and so I was going through a lot of final exams and things like that. And so I had been out. My husband was in the habit of calling me whenever he was going to be late coming home, but I hadn't received a call from him. But I thought that maybe he had just been held up, and so I didn't really think anything of it. But it was late, and I had just put my little boy to bed, and he was 3 at the time. And I was kind of tidying up the house and getting ready to go to bed myself and checking my phone to see if Nick had texted me when I got a knock at the door, and that almost never happened. So immediately I felt like something was wrong. I answered the door, and there was a police officer standing there, and I thought, my first initial thought was like I had done something wrong. Clearly, I had made too much noise, or I had left my trash out too long or something. And the first thing the officer said to me was, "Are you Mrs. Swain?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Your husband has been shot." And the first thing I did was laugh in disbelief. And I asked him where, and he said he didn't know. I asked him if he was going to be okay, and he said he didn't know. And I had to go and wake up my little boy, scoop him out of bed, and he was so excited to see a police officer standing in our living room. And I tried to gather up as many things as I can. I remember my hands were shaking uncontrollably. We got into the police car, and Officer Alvarez, who was our police advocate, he turned his lights and sirens on, and my little boy was sitting in my lap in the back of the police car, just beaming with excitement because there were lights and sirens, and he was so excited, and he's asking me, "Mama, what's going on? Where are we going?" And I had to tell him, I don't know what's going on, just it's gonna be okay. And when we got to the hospital, it was just an absolute blur. There were so many people around. I had brought a stroller for my little boy. I strapped him in, but he was trying to play and asking all kinds of questions, and people were trying to give me all kinds of information. I didn't have anyone to call to watch my little boy. So a very kind fellow officer offered to watch him that night because I had no one else to call.
So when you got to the hospital, what were you made aware of was going on with your husband?
I don't even remember who told me. I feel like information filtered through many people. But they had told me that he had been shot. I didn't know how many times at that moment. Eventually I learned that he had been shot twice, that actually penetrated his body. They told me all kinds of different things. I heard many opinions from many doctors. At first I heard he was lucky to still have a hand at all. Then I heard that he was lucky he hadn't slipped into a coma, that he was lucky he hadn't been outright killed. I heard that he would have to have many surgeries and that he would have to relearn how to walk again. And that he may never regain use of his right hand again.
How long were you, from the moment the knock on your door came and you were told he was shot, but they didn't know how bad? Until you were told he's alive and going to make it, but it's gonna be a hard, long road. Do you know how long that was?
It felt like both hours and hours and minutes at the same time. I think I lost all perception of time. I think it was maybe an hour and a half.
How were you feeling in that time?
In shock, numb. I remember lots of people were asking me if I was okay and commenting on my lack of emotional response at the time. And I think I was holding all of my emotion in until I felt safe and things felt okay, because at that moment I felt like I needed to be strong for my son.
Is that what you were trying to do? Not let him see you, I guess, freak out, for lack of a
Right.
better word?
Yes.
Was there a time when you finally felt free to freak out?
Yes, I think it didn't come until Nick went home.
Okay. And what was that moment like?
When Nick first came home, the first thing he did was he went into our guest room that I had prepared for him. He closed the door and he sobbed for hours. And I think that was the first time that it really felt real to me, because I had never really heard him cry like that before. My husband's a very strong person and a very prideful man. And I had never heard something so raw come from him. And I think that's the moment that it really felt real.
Do you remember the moment that your son saw him for the first time?
Yes.
What was that like?
Nick and I talked a lot about whether or not it would be healthy for Tristan to see him in the hospital. And ultimately, because he was asking me so many questions about where's Papa, is Papa going to be okay, I decided to take him to the hospital and let him see Nick in the hospital. And we took him to the room, and he's, it was 3 at the time, so he didn't fully understand the magnitude of what had happened, but he did understand that Papa had needles all over in his arms and that he had a bandage on his hand, and we had to be careful not to hurt him while he was trying to give him hugs. And we showed him the wounds because he asked to see, and I kind of lifted up the bandages so that Tree could see the wound in Nick's leg. It was a huge wound, and it had been sewn up at that point, and there were tubes leading out of it with blood, sucking out blood and fluid, and it was gruesome. And I felt like in that moment it was important for Trey to see that, because he had been asking me a lot.
When he got home, what were his physical limitations?
So many. He was not able to walk without a cane for a long time. He was not able to bathe himself. He was not able to cook. He was almost bedridden for at least several months afterwards. He was also on so much medication that he wasn't himself. He was sedated, and when he wasn't sedated and sleeping, he was not himself. He was angry. He was frustrated at not being able to move around. My husband at the time was 29 when this happened. And for me to watch him at the prime of his life go through something that was so physically debilitating, it's very difficult. I was the primary caretaker for our son. I cooked, I cleaned, I took care of him for months and months.
You were in school at the time this happened, correct?
Yes.
What were you in school for?
I was getting my BA in art at the time.
So when this happened, did you have to make some adjustments with your educational plans?
Yes. A few days after it happened, I had to drop out of my university completely, because it was very apparent that I was going to need to take care of Nick full time. I was out of school for a year until I was able to go back and finish my degree.
What kinds of things did you have to do for Nick in that time that you were his full-time caregiver?
I think the thing that comes to mind the most when I think about that time is wound care. There was a lot of wound care multiple times a day. Every day I was changing his bandages. Nick was not able to do it because every time he would take off his bandages from his wounds, he was getting nauseous and lightheaded from seeing the amount of blood and infection and necrotic black skin and the smell. And he wasn't able to do it alone. So I was the person that was changing his wound care. Eventually it became sort of a routine. After a few months, we could, put on some music and he would lay down and we could laugh about it. But it was, I've never had to do something like that in my life. And it was a very intense experience, especially after taking him to appointments where he had to have necrotic dead skin removed for long periods of time. He was going through these very painful procedures where afterwards the wound needed to be washed out especially well so it didn't get infected even worse. Those were particularly bad times.
You mentioned that he couldn't do the wound care himself when it came to taking the bandages off because of the physical issues, but when he would take the bandages off and look at the wounds, would it affect him emotionally and psychologically as well?
Yes.
Explain that to me.
There were multiple times when I had to help him take showers. We found a shower chair that he could sit down in the shower because the medication and the pain was making him so lightheaded that it wasn't safe for him to stand in the shower, and he wasn't able to submerge the wounds in a bathtub. And he could barely stand the pain of any water even touching his leg in any way at all anyway. But when he stood up and saw the wounds, every time he would get into the shower, I could tell he was trying really hard to hold it together in front of me and not cry and not get frustrated. But there were times when I did see him look nauseous or look like he was going to even pass out. There were a few times when I had to support him while we were getting into the shower.
You said earlier on in your testimony that when you very first got back home, he locked himself in the room and cried, and you hadn't really ever seen that from him before. Did that happen on more than one occasion during his recovery?
Many times. Yes.
How many times prior to this incident would you say you've ever seen him cry in your entire relationship?
No.
So you're helping take care of him, wound care, showers, eating. Are you helping him eat?
Yes, he regained some use of his hand after a few months. We were constantly changing out the support, the hard support on his arm. And at first there were pins and screws in his arm that were being controlled almost like by strings, almost looked like a puppet. After that was taken off, he had more independence, but that was not for several months. And so for a long time, I was helping him eat, helping him bathe, helping him get dressed, anything really that he would need to do on his own normally, I was helping him do.
And taking him to his doctor's appointments and physical therapy?
Yes, he was not safe to drive. He was on so much medication for almost a year. He was not cleared to drive. So I was driving him to multiple doctor's appointments every day.
What was the physical therapy part of this like?
It was intense at first. He was very, very fortunate to have been admitted into the CFI. It's like the Center for Intrepid on Fort Sam Houston, the base. They catered towards veterans who've lost limbs. The nature of his injuries were deemed severe enough that he was admitted there, and he was going there multiple times a week. At first it was every day. And I was driving him there, and it was anywhere from 1 hour to 4 hour sessions every day.
So as far as the traumatic effect of this on you emotionally as his wife, how has that been on you?
Incredibly difficult. I talked about how before this, I had kind of looked at him like he was invincible, and I had a sense of innocence, I think, and I didn't realize how much I was relying on that until it was taken away from me. And this experience has felt like a huge loss of innocence for me and for my son. I felt like I can no longer look at the world the same way, and I have trouble sleeping. In the beginning, after this happened, I had to go to the urgent care multiple times because I was having chest pain and heart palpitations, and the doctors told me that it was because of stress. And so they put me on, anti-anxiety medication that were short term. But I feel that I have been irrevocably changed fundamentally as a person because of this event. I started loud noises. I'm unable to sleep most nights soundly. And I have just a deep distrust of the world now. I can no longer watch movies because the violence is everywhere. And I notice it. There are lots of times when I hear people watching movies or playing video games or reading books, and I want to just cover my ears and scream to block out, because I just can't really handle any more violence. I can't handle it anymore.
What about your son?
My son, he's taken it hard, but in his own way. When it happened, he was 3, and he did not fully understand what had happened. And at first he kind of was asking me questions about it, and we tried to be as honest with him as possible. But when he started going to a different school, he was having outbursts of anger in school, and I tried to talk to the staff, and they just weren't very understanding or about what had happened. And they wanted us to have him diagnosed, and they wanted us to put him on medication to kind of calm him down. And so I tried to take him to a child psychologist that was with Battling Minds, who is affiliated with the police department. And I took him for about 4 or 5 sessions. And every time the therapist or the psychiatrist would try and talk to him about, what about your papa? How do you feel about what happened to him? He would start having an unbelievable outburst. He would start screaming, throwing things, crying. And the sessions were making him worse at school, and so I stopped bringing him. But his teachers were telling me that he was saying all kinds of very disturbing things. And still, he's in kindergarten now, but still, I have a dialogue with his teacher, and she knows what has happened because he has told her. And he makes comments all the time like, oh, Miss Greer, we can't do that because a bad guy might come and shoot us, or Miss Greer, be very careful because bad guys are everywhere and you never know when they might come and shoot you, or we can't go to this place because somebody might try and kill us. He's constantly saying things like that, and every time it absolutely breaks my heart.
How has this affected your marriage?
I think when you go through something like this with somebody, and Nick and I had always had a very strong relationship before this, but inevitably something like this is going to cause strain, and it did cause strain between us. But ultimately, I think that we've come out stronger because of it. But yes, it has caused a lot of strain, especially in the beginning when, we weren't able to be physically intimate, which it causes a lot of distance between you when something like that happens. And because of my inability to, I guess, bounce back from something like this, it's been very difficult.
Did you want him to go back to work when he was cleared to?
Of course not, no.
Did that cause fighting?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have spent over 2 years trying to convince him not to go back, that this is something that he wants to do. It is his purpose in life, and I don't want to be the thing that stands in his way of doing what he wants to do.
So how do you feel every time he walks out the door with that uniform on?
A sense of impending doom, impending dread. I constantly am cataloging things in my mind to remember so that I can use them later. You know, if I ever need to talk about him or write an obituary or something, I feel like I can't ever relax because I'm constantly waiting for another phone call or another knock at the door. And I feel like every happy moment with him is on borrowed time.
What would you like the members of the jury to know about how you feel about what should happen to Jesus Prado?
To be honest, I have not really had time to even think about the person who did this and what should be done to hold him accountable, because I've been so busy just reeling from the shock of what's happened that I just haven't had the capacity to even think about him. But now that this trial has finally happened, I've had time to think about it, and I just want him to be held accountable for what he's done, not just to my husband, but to me and my innocent little boy who's now going to be changed for the rest of his life because of one action that he took.
Nothing for everyone.
All right, defense.
No questions, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
She's excused, Judge.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means, you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone or view anything about this trial until the conclusion of the trial. Do you understand? All right, if you remove the square microphone and you're excused.
Tiki Ojiri just described a life that will never be normal again. Her son thinks bad guys are everywhere. She lives in constant fear. Every time her husband leaves for work, she's cataloging memories in case she needs to write an obituary. That's what Jesse Prado did to this family. Now, let's hear from Jesse himself. This is a jail call recorded just weeks after the shooting. Listen to his tone.
All right. Could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand, have a seat. Make sure you keep your voice up so everyone can hear. Oh, just have a seat. No, just have a seat. And just speak up so everyone can hear. All right, if you'll state your name for the record.
My name is Omar Hernandez.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Hernandez. Can you also just include your date of birth for us, please?
12/14/19.
You know Jesse Prado.
He's my brother-in-law. It's my wife's brother.
And who is your wife?
My wife is Monica Hernandez.
How did you first meet Jesse?
I met him when I started dating my wife. There was a 10-year celebration of a niece. That's when I officially met just about everybody.
In the family?
Family.
And where does the family mostly live? Like what part of Texas?
Dilly.
Okay. How far away is Dilly from San Antonio?
We're about an hour 15. It depends where we go, but generally an hour 15 now.
And what direction away from San Antonio?
South, between San Antonio and Laredo. We're halfway between those big cities.
And for people who might not be familiar with Dilly, can you tell the members of the jury what Dilly is like? Is it a big town, small town? What's going on there?
Dilly is a small town, about roughly 4,000 people. And it's mainly farm town, small town. Pretty much everybody knows everybody. Small little bitty town. It's very unique, but it's united. It's everybody knows everybody, and whenever there's somebody in need, we tend to do a lot of those like fundraisers and plate sales and all that stuff. So everybody jumps, takes the shirt off almost for everybody. That's where I live. That's where I work there too.
And when you say Jesse and his family, are they those qualities that you're describing of Dilly? Are they also those qualities?
Yes.
So you met Jesse at like a birthday party, it sounds like. Do you remember about what year that was you met him?
I would say 2011, 12, somewhere around there.
And you said you were dating your wife at the time. Y'all since then married, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay. as you became closer with the family and you became part of the family yourself,
Mhm.
were you familiar with the family dynamics?
Yes,
Okay. Do you know how many siblings Jesse has in total?
yeah.
How many?
Well, at the time, the oldest was still with us. Mr. Cantu, Noel Cantu, and there's Manuel, Jamie. My wife named Jamie, and then Jesse.
Because I think it was five, right?
Right.
5 siblings. Okay. And you mentioned Wedo,
Mhm.
the oldest,
Yes.
and that's what everybody called him, right?
Mhm.
Okay. In Dilley, is that where Wedo lived?
Yeah.
Okay. Describe for the jury, let's just say it's a random weekend and the family is getting together. Where would they go?
Wedo's house was the gathering. Wedo's house was the gathering point for everything, for barbecues. We spent so many afternoons in there. Barbecues, birthdays, Thanksgiving, Super Bowls. We're a sports family, so we gather outside with the sports and watch games, but that was the dynamic was that was the watching point of everything, events and all that.
And when it comes to Jesse and his father, were you familiar with that situation, that relationship or lack thereof?
Yeah, I had a general idea of it. And Paul wasn't around.
Did Wedo become kind of the father figure to Jesse?
He was a father. He was a father figure for a lot.
And Jesse's mother, this time, was she still living? Was she still around? Like, what was her situation
Of
of Jesse?
the mom?
Mhm.
Yeah, she's still around.
Yeah. But as far as getting together, though, people would go to Wedo's.
His house was the place.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you remember when he passed away? Do
Yes.
you remember what year it was?
21, 20, yeah, I think it was 21, 22.
Okay. And do you remember the circumstances of him passing away, like the health reasons and all that?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about the very details, the specifics, but I know that he was struggling in the hospital at one point. And then as soon as he came out, we got to see him, got to have a little conversation with them, and then went to the hospital, I believe. Then right after he got out, that's when he passed away.
And he wasn't, to be clear, he wasn't like elderly when he passed
Oh, no,
away.
no. He was 49, if I believe. 49.
And so did it come as a shock to the whole family when he passed?
It devastated us.
And how did it affect Jesse in particular?
He lost his father figure.
And when it came to him coming around, him being close to the rest of the family, did that have an effect on that as well?
It affects all of us.
And I think around that time, Jesse had already moved to San Antonio. And so he wasn't living in the Dilley area anymore.
He was living here in San Antonio.
And in aftermath of him passing, his brother passing, was he coming to Dilley as often? Was he out there in San Antonio by himself? Not by himself, but away from the family.
He tried to come back and be there for the family. It was not the same.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. What did you notice in particular when it came to Jesse after that? You said he wasn't the same. How so?
He's a broken man. That's his father figure. His role model. So it's not only a carnal, it was his father figure.
And I think you threw in some Spanish there. Do you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My apologies. Yeah.
Who passed, Judge?
State.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Hernandez. Excuse me. I'm gonna ask you some questions. Thank you. You mentioned that you're an animal control officer in Dilley.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that mean that you work closely with law enforcement
Yes,
In
very
your-
close.
in your hometown?
Yes,
Um, are you friends with police officers that, I mean, we're talking about this case, you know, the people that he shot are actual law enforcement officers.
Mhm.
Are you friends with law enforcement officers in
Yes.
Dilley?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. If someone that you didn't know, someone who's a total stranger to you, did what the defendant did
Mhm.
to Officer Swain and Officer Viscara,
Mhm.
what would you think is an appropriate punishment for that person? Nearly killing a police officer and shooting them 17 times in the chest,
Mhm.
well, aiming at them.
I would object to the state's the evidence, Judge.
All right, that'll be sustained.
I'll rephrase that. If you knew some police officers who were shot at
Mhm.
17 times, and the offender intentionally aimed at their chest and nearly killed those officers, what would you think is an appropriate punishment for someone that you didn't know personally who had done that?
Whatever the justice system demands for it.
I'm asking your personal opinion. Would you think that person deserves probation?
I would object to ask and answer, Judge.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
You repeat it again, please?
Would you think a person who did that on purpose deserves probation?
No.
Would you think a person who did that on purpose deserves 5 years?
No.
Would you think that they deserve much more time than that?
Perhaps, yes.
You said that the reason that it shocked you that he had done this, that you were in disbelief, is because what you know of him is him being a good man, and there's no history of him doing anything that would indicate he could do this. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Given that there is no real history and that he jumped from 0 to 100, basically, how confident can you be that he's not capable of doing this again?
I'm sure.
But you were sure before he would have never done it, right?
Mhm.
And then he did it. Is that accurate?
Yes,
So how sure can you be that he will never do it again?
100% sure.
But you were 100% sure before, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and he still did it, correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned church, and I just want to make sure I understand the timeline. At what point did Jesse and you have conversations about him getting back into his Christianity and going back to the church?
Before the October,
Before the shooting?
Yeah.
Was it after his brother's passing, or was it before his brother's passing?
after,
Okay, how about before Monette and him separated, or after Monette and him separated?
we had frank conversations about it too.
Okay, so I guess just for timeline purposes, would you say that the conversations about it happened maybe in between his brother's passing and the separation of him and Monette?
Yeah, and that time, yes.
Okay, and were you personally aware of him actually doing what y'all talked about? Going back to church, attending services, was he doing those things at the time?
Yes.
The prosecutor just exposed the flaw in the defense's argument. If you were 100% sure he'd never do this and he did it anyway, how can you be sure he won't do it again? It's a fair question. But the defense isn't done. Jesse's sister is about to testify, and her pain is real.
Or whatever, that he was there for us all the time.
All right, so widow's loss was tough for everybody in your family, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you see Jesse from your layperson opinion get depressed about it?
Yes, because it's like a reach out, I was like try to reach out, and when you get no response, I got like that. I don't want to be that other one because, the depressed that you go through losing a loved one, but that really did affect him and his performance.
So certainly that was hard for everybody in the family.
Yes, sir.
But I mean, Jesse was dealing with it, right?
Yes, sir.
Did did anything in the marriage start changing when he was going through that difficult time, as far as you could tell, or did you not tell any difference for them?
I couldn't.
Right. So at some point, did you start to figure out that there was now a marital problem in Jesse's life?
Yes, sir.
When did, I guess, what year did you first learn about that?
And actually it was in 2023. In 2023 actually 2022 around December. Around December.
Okay, so that's the time frame. Did the marriage at that point start getting difficult because of circumstances in the marriage?
Yes.
All right, and I guess it is in evidence that the I guess the start of that problem was just an affair Monette had. That's come out in evidence already. That's one of the things that was significant about that, right?
Yes, sir.
And so again, that's something in a relationship that happens. It happened to Jesse, and that was something that they were dealing with. Would you?
Yes, sir.
Now, at some point, did Jesse choose to like file for divorce, or at some point after some time, did he say he wanted to keep his family unit together?
Yes, it was always all my family together.
All right. So from the time that happened, I guess all the way until October of 23, was, I mean, do you know if Monette was coming back to Jesse and like, thinking about coming back, not thinking about coming back? How would you describe the dynamic from that side during 2023?
It was, he wanted his family back. He tried so hard. He would making choices of going back with him back and forth, getting his hopes up high that he was gonna get back with him.
Was that difficult on Jesse?
Yes, sir.
All right. What did you see that seemed to make things difficult for him? What were your observations about him as his older sister?
Well, I mean, when he made up his mind that he was done, we would have, he would call me or call him, check it out. He would be excited when they came home last night, and one thing led to the other. She's coming home, and thank God, thank God she's coming home. And then to find out she didn't, she wouldn't. And I would just like, how are you supposed to move on if she's gonna be going back and forth, making him think she's coming home? So there was no way he had in his mind he was gonna be able to move on, thinking she was gonna be coming home.
Now, Jesse was always able to support his family, right?
Yes.
Did that change at all during the separation where things got a lot more difficult?
Oh, what I found out, yes.
How would you describe Jesse's emotional state towards the end of 2023?
Men really keep things to themselves. They really don't open up. Or less they don't want to ask for help when they really need the help. Found out that he was struggling after. I was sad because he didn't open up to me, he didn't ask me for help. But some men don't wanna be as if I need help.
Now, I mean, you do know why we're here, right? I mean, you know that Jesse shot 2 police officers from San Antonio Police Department, correct?
Yes, sir.
Um. I guess my biggest question, having, been here for the last 2 years, is like, how shocking to you was it that Jesse was able to do that?
Very,
But why do you say that? I mean,
very, because he's not that person throughout his life. He's never been.
Jamie Rodriguez just told the jury her brother snapped under the weight of grief, financial stress, and a collapsing marriage. She swears he'll never do this again, but the prosecutor is about to reveal something Jamie didn't know, and it's going to destroy the good man defense.
I'll pass the witness.
State, any recross?
So Mr. Rodriguez, when you say that your brother had no history of acting like this, in January of 2023, were you aware that he thought Monet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, did your family do anything to intervene or try to get him help at that time?
The only reason I found out was, when after everything, when they called me and told me that's the reason why she wouldn't come home, because of that slap.
Okay, do you think that's normal or peaceful behavior?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and so what did your family do to ensure that he is not putting his hands on a woman or acting aggressive and physically assaulting people?
What was that, repeat it again?
What steps did your family take in January of 2023 to ensure that your brother was not physically assaulting people when he got upset?
We did not know anything until, like I said, when they called me about that slap, which was, he has never ever laid a hand on him, him on her till that day.
Okay, so when did she call you and notify you of this?
And I can't recall the day.
Was it before the shooting?
Yes.
Okay, and so when you found that out, what did you do to help your brother and ensure that he wasn't, go ahead,
I'm sorry, you heard what before, it was after.
it was after.
It was after that she said it.
And nobody else in your family knew?
Nobody knew, because she called me. And I didn't tell nobody. She called me after everything that happened, and she told me that was the reason why she didn't go back for that. But I always, I still communicate with her, and I just told her, when it happened, you should have called me, I could have a talk, of course, you don't want that.
Okay, so if you had known in January 2023 that your brother's popularity, you would have had a talk with him. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that's all you would have done?
Well, it's a talk, it's steps, there's some steps we can take through what you call the slap. To me, when she told me, I didn't know, my reaction to her was, why did you call me, when it happened? I'm gonna talk to him, see what I can do,
Okay. So it's your position that you would have just spoken with him and seen what you could do about it.
Yes, sir.
You wouldn't have reported it to the police or sought classes to help him or therapy or anything like that.
To be on therapy, yes.
And now that I've suggested that, maybe you would have. Now I'm saying that you would have sought therapy, but you're not the best person to decide what is correct in treatment, right? You don't know background in that. Okay. And so when we're talking about your brother never having a history of acting like this, back before the shooting, did you know that he was threatening his own children's life?
I found everything out after the shooting.
Okay, and so those things, right, him slapping, okay, him threatening to pull firearms on his own children, that's all escalating behavior that ultimately led to him acting out on his threats against two San Antonio Police Department officers, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
but you're swearing to this jury that he will never engage in this behavior again.
Yes, I take that upon my life.
Okay. And you would, before this happened, you would have swore that your brother would never do this, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's not really a safe bet to make, is it?
It's not a bit, it's just a story of my life because all the years that I've known him, like I said, he wasn't that person. He's never been that person.
But to be fair, that's your limited knowledge of him, because we've already established that you didn't know a lot of what was going on in his life in 2023, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Witness.
Defense?
No more questions, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Yes.
Excuse, Judge.
All right. The rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone or view anything about this trial until the trial is concluded. If you'll leave that. Oh, no, if you'll leave that.
Oh,
And you may step down your excuse. If parties can approach. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the schedule for the remainder of this trial. I've spoken to both the state and the defense. There are going to be witnesses that are going to be called tomorrow. We're going to start at 1:30. On Wednesday, we're going to start at 9:30. And I'm saying 9:30 so you all have time to park and maybe have a little breakfast. No other juries have been called up this week, so you should be able to find parking if you arrive sort of decently, right, on Wednesday. Any questions before I excuse you? All right, please remember my previous instructions. You're not to do any research about this case. Do not Google, do not look at anything. Everything that you need to know is to come from inside the courtroom and nowhere else. Do not even think about this case outside of the jury box, all right? All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors. All right, y'all may be seated and you may take him back so he doesn't miss transportation. And to everyone else, the jury charge has been emailed to me. You all will get a chance to see that and take copies with you. And then on Tuesday, if there are any changes. Thank you. And then if there are any changes that need to be made to that charge, we're going to stay Tuesday late if we need to hammer those out. And of course, your client will be transported back, so the deputies here don't have to do it. And we'll put on the record the agreement once he's present. Is there anything else? All right, and we're off the records in here. How many more witnesses are you anticipating, counsel? Cindy? Just approximately.
About 10. That was short. 2 of them that I couldn't get along.
All right, so what I like to do in this court, I like to give the jury, deliberation start at the beginning of the day instead of trying to do it in the afternoon. So then we will definitely be ready for closing on Wednesday. And how much time are you all requesting for closing or?
I'm gonna request 45 minutes. I don't know what his
No.
main witnesses are gonna
we-
say.
Each side has 30 minutes.
Let that sink in. Jesse Prado's own sister didn't know he'd slapped his wife, didn't know he'd threatened to burn down his house, didn't know he'd threatened his daughter with a gun, and she swore under oath that he'd never hurt anyone, but he did. He ambushed 2 cops, he nearly killed one, and now a jury has to decide how many years is that worth. The defense will argue for mercy, the state will argue for justice, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. There are no winners here. Just broken bodies, broken families, and a system trying to make sense of senseless violence. What do you think? Was this a mental breakdown, or was this a choice? Let me know in the comments.